Welcome to Modern Wisdom with Dawn Ricci. I'm Dawn Ricci, a spiritual mentor, healer, psychic, and medium. My podcast is all about empowering you with spiritual insights on health, wellness, relationships, and careers. Join me and my guests as we navigate life's twists and turns, sharing wisdom and expanding knowledge together. Hit subscribe now to stay updated and never miss an episode. Today, my guest is Alison Bladh. She is an award-winning registered nutritional and beauty therapist who is passionate about empowering women to reclaim their health during menopause. She is here today to teach us how simple changes in lifestyle and nutrition will improve our health and well-being and ultimately improve our happiness. Join me in welcoming Alison Bladh. Hi, Alison. So, Alison, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you, Dawn. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast.
Oh, and it's late by you, right?
It's 5 o'clock in the
Okay.
afternoon, so it's not so late.
And you're in Sweden?
I'm actually in Sweden. I mean, I am British. I'm from London, but I live in just outside Stockholm at the moment in Sweden.
Nice, nice. Well, thank you, thank you. So I'm going to dive right in, and I'm going to say, let's just give us the phases of menopause.
Yeah, that's really a great question, actually, Dawn, because it's something we don't talk about, and there's so many women that don't really understand what menopause is. So the phases of menopause, or what we call the menopause transition, is we have perimenopause, we have menopause, and then we have postmenopause. Now, perimenopause is the beginning of this transition. On average, it starts at the age of 45, but we're all individual. It can actually start earlier, it can start later, but average 45.
It started me earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite common, actually. It's not so common before 40, but that kind of between 40 and 45, you can start having the symptoms. Now, perimenopause is where your hormones start going a bit crazy. It's like this kind of mad roller coaster ride. Everything is up and down and all over the place. You can actually be estrogen dominant in this phase because your hormones just become very unbalanced. And this triggers off, or can trigger off, not all women experience menopausal symptoms, but it can trigger off the symptoms, like the hot flashes, weight gain, night sweats, irritability, mood swings, fatigue. I mean, the list goes on.
It's just true. I just remember those days. I'm over it now, thank God. But let me tell you, I remember getting up in the middle of the night and just turning on the ice cold shower, just standing there
Yeah,
in
it
a
can be.
puddle of sweat.
It can be. I mean, night sweats are terrible because they obviously affect your sleep. So the list of menopausal symptoms, I think it's like over 40 different symptoms that you can experience. It just goes on and on. And this can kind of creep in perimenopause, but you're still having your monthly cycle. You're still fertile, but things are starting to change. Your hormones are starting to become unbalanced. Perimenopause can go on for quite a few years, actually. On average, women go into menopause at the age of 51. Now, what does that actually mean? I mean, menopause is when you haven't had a period. So you haven't menstruated consecutively for a year. So you haven't had any period for a year. Then you are officially in menopause. And what does that mean? I mean, menopause really, when you think about it, is only really one day, because it's that day after a year that you haven't had a period. And
Oh, I never thought of that like that. It's like
yeah,
you flip the switch.
yeah, that's it. You kind of, okay, I'm done with perimenopause. I'm in menopause now. And then all the time after that is what we call postmenopause. And this is where your ovaries are no longer functioning. You're not producing estrogen and progesterone. Well, your body actually produces a very small amount from your adrenal glands, your sit above your kidneys, but your ovarian function is no longer there. So you're not fertile anymore. And because of the decline in hormones, because we have we've lost our progesterone and estrogen, that is when, we are at higher risk of certain chronic diseases like osteoporosis, cardiovascular disease. Dementia is something where, there's a bit of a question mark there. The research is looking into that because we don't know yet if there is a connection between, estrogen and dementia or Alzheimer's. But what we do see is that women in this age bracket are, there's a way high more percentage of women that suffer from cognitive health issues than men. So is there a connection between estrogen and brain health? That's really, we need more research on that. So that's really the phases of menopause and postmenopause. I mean, we're living so much longer. So that can be 30 plus years of a woman's life. So it's really important that we support ourselves so we can thrive in this next phase.
Yeah. The emotional roller coaster that we go through as women during these phases is just, it's just incredible. We were talking before camera was on, but as a private investigator, I dealt with a lot of relationships, and a lot of my clients were in between, say, 35 to say 65, right? And so a lot of my clients were like, they just decided to either up and leave one day, leaving their 35-year marriage, just going crazy. And their husband's like, I don't even know what I did wrong. And of course, the woman in me is like, yeah, well, I bet you if you started making a pros and cons list, there might be something up there. But seriously, I mean, people during that time, women during that time sometimes would make rash decisions, unthought out, life-changing decisions like packing up and leaving, moving across the world. And even like you had just said, like an attorney. In fact, you tell the story. You had just said that about an attorney, and I can relate to that.
Yeah, I was saying that I was asked to be a guest on a podcast for an attorney, a company, a big law firm, because they'd specialized in divorce, but they'd said, the majority of their clients were women in menopause. And one of the guys on this was saying it was just like this light bulb moment, because he was like, what's going on? All of these women were in this specific age group, and they just basically making these drastic changes and deciding, that they wanted to leave their partner, husband, whatever. So that there's definitely, something happens when we lose our hormones. It affects virtually every system in the body.
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, for me, and when I was doing the investigations, I never really saw what happens in the end. I just, we give the reports of what was going on. But I don't know. Hopefully sometimes, people did get back together and they realized that it was just an emotional state of menopause, that they reached out and got help for it. Let's talk about some other things, say the stigmas attached to menopause. I know for me that people, especially women, we always have a stigma attached if we're not strong enough, if we're a crybaby, if we're all those things. Can you, maybe have some clarity about that?
Yeah, I mean, menopause, when we think about it's always had a very like negative connotations attached to it, hasn't it? And I remember when I was growing up, my mother and my grandmother, and all the kind of the female figures in my life that were going through this. I didn't really think about it at the time, but it was all very much, oh no, we don't talk about that. I think my mother really suffered, and it was, oh, just get on with it. You certainly didn't get help from the medical profession. It was just kind of, oh, what are you talking about? You know, you just have to get through this yourself. And I think that the negativity attached to it is to do with more on the lines that, you know, aging. We don't like to talk about aging, do we, as women? There's a huge stigma, you know, ageism. We all want to remain young, and you know, menopause. We're not fertile anymore. But it's a natural phase. It's a life phase. Every single woman will go through the menopause. You can't avoid it. But you can't. It will happen to everybody. It's embracing it, isn't it? And thinking, okay, this is the next phase in my life, rather than it all being doom and gloom and negativity. It's just
Right.
part of life's journey.
Right.
And it is very easy to get, and I see with the clients that I work with, it's very easy to kind of go down that rabbit hole, isn't it, of negativity and, oh, I feel terrible and this is awful and ooh. But it doesn't make it any better if you do that. You really have to kind of have a word with yourself and think that, you know, this actually, I'm alive. I feel okay. You might be having symptoms, but you should never regret getting older. You know, I mean, age is something that is denied to many people. So don't ever regret the fact that you're alive and you can live these years after.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, from a healing perspective, because that's now where, you know, I'm in energy healing. That's where you put someone in a better mindset and to stop the negativity and to reframe things, showing them the reframing. And first of all, let me just, hello, you're in the beauty part of the industry. Women look damn good nowadays. There is so much out there for women to look good. Like, there's no reason, you know, some people, oh, I'm not going to do Botox or a restaurant or any of that stuff. All right, that's fine. But you can still have a beautiful skincare regime. You can still take care of your body, you know, and also too, like I know I was going to ask you about weight gain, but even if you do gain weight, now more than ever, any size that you are is being, you know, is totally accepted. You know, it really is. That's the way our world is showing us as we are beautiful no matter what, you know. So I think that I think that's really a good thing because I know for me growing up, I was a chubby kid, but growing up, it was hard because and I just turned 60. Um, it was just, you know, everything was about how you looked, your weight. You know, did you look like Barbie? Did you, you know, did all the girls on the teen magazines? Everybody was so skinny. You know, anorexia was, you know, rarely rampant throughout high school. So it's really a wonderful thing knowing that if you're a woman in your 40s, 50s, and 60s and beyond, to embrace the beauty and the wonder that you are. And once you do that from the inside and you're there, you've got it. You have to love yourself. You have to love yourself first before anyone else can love you, right? So you've got it. And then everything will start falling into place. So I do want to talk about weight gain. So average, is there an average of what people do, you know, what they gain in the time frame? Like how does our metabolism slow down? Things like that.
Yeah, it's difficult to say an exact average because it's just so individual. You
Yeah.
know, some women won't gain any weight. Some women will gain quite a lot, and it's very individual. But it is a big thing, and I see with clients that I work with that is normally one of the reasons that, you know, that they need help with their health and you know, want to reach their health goals. But it's what happens really. I mean, we don't fully actually understand it. We need more research. There's a lack of research in women's health, full stop. And we need more research. But what we do know is when we have a decline in these hormones, it really affects our metabolism and our metabolic homeostasis, so the balance there. And what can happen is testosterone, which women have as well as a hormone, testosterone just isn't really so much connected with the menopause, but it's something that declines as we age as women. And this can have an effect on our body shape. So what happens is when we age as women, we go from like a pear shape more to an apple. You know, you've the weight around the tummy area. That is very typical that we collect, you know, the weight around the middle area. And it's a complex there's so many different factors in the reason that we do gain weight. One of them being, you know, you can't forget you've got the natural aging process also going on in the background. You can't blame everything on menopause.
Right.
You know, we become, not everybody, but we do become less active as we age. You know, if you're suffering from a lot of menopausal symptoms, you know, you're just feeling terrible. You're not going to be having a lot of motivation to go out and exercise. So that kind of adds into the weight gain. You know, you need to look at thyroid. Hyperthyroidism can be something that we see more in women during menopause and as we age, and that can have an effect on weight. Portion control. Now, I say to my ladies that unfortunately, when we get older, you know, I've always had this like 80-20 rule. So if you do everything right 80% of the time, that 20% you can kind of do what you want, have that glass of wine, eat your chocolate, whatever. But when you get into menopause, it goes down to 90-10.
Oh, really?
Yeah, unfortunately. So you still
Ah.
got that 10% to play around with, but you just have to think about what you're eating and the amount that you're eating. You know, you don't need to be eating constantly. And things like intermittent fasting, you know, that there is research actually coming out now on that about how beneficial it is to give your body a break. You don't need to be constantly snacking and eating, because there's a lot of things that happens in the body when we give our digestion a break.
Mhm.
Um, so, you know, it's all of these things that we really need to think about um, in general for our overall menopausal health.
Well, I'm gonna have to think about that 10%. Listen, minus another 10, that's gonna be hard for me. Hey, if you haven't already done so, check out my website at dawnricci.com, where you can book your appointment with me. If you need expert guidance in finding your own spirituality, or maybe thinking about getting back on track with health and well-being, then let's get to it with customized mentoring programs for your personal development. You can find all the information you need at dawnricci.com. Now let's get back to the show. I mean, as it is, I'm really good Monday through Friday.
Yeah,
Then,
yeah.
Friday night, by that time, my husband will say, "Do you want to go out to dinner? Do you want to go grab a pizza? Do you want to?" And I'll try to say, "All right, let's do sushi," because I know on Saturday is going to be the bigger dinner. And then on Sunday, being the Italian that I am, for us, it's all about the Sunday, macaroni and meatballs and brojol, So I save my pasta for my Sunday. So I think I'm at 70-30. I don't know. It's gonna be tough. And I can agree with you on working out. It's harder. I think that, as I've gotten older, and again, I hate to always say about me as a person, but that's who I know best is me. But as me as a person, I just feel that it's really hard to, as I'm getting older, to manage everything that's on my schedule. I think I'm busier now than when I was full-fledged in my 30s. So for me, it's just, taking that extra hour or, working out. I don't want to be hurting. I don't want to hurt anymore. Those days you still do the weights and you walk around, your legs hurt. I don't want to be that anymore. Now I just take my dogs for a walk. And so I try to walk like the 3 miles a day. And that's still exercise, even though you're not really getting your heart rate up, it's still exercise. So I'm just going to stick with that.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, Dawn, because when we look at how we exercise when we're going through the menopause, it's very important. You know, if you're one of these people that does a lot of like that really high intensity exercise, it we have to kind of look at that as we age, because it gives a cortisol response. It creates stress hormones in the body, and this can, knock on, especially with weight gain, because if you've got higher levels of cortisol, you will store fat. It's a fat storing hormone. So, if you're doing your workouts late in the evening, you're coming home, you may be eating dinner and then going to bed, you will find it difficult to sleep as well, because you're kind of like wired. We need to do, like you were saying, more walking, more yoga, more lighter exercises, and still doing exercises to increase the heart rate, but maybe not quite as intense. And I see that so much, is specifically in clients that want to lose weight, that are really, I had a client, funny enough, I spoke to yesterday, that she was always in the gym, doing these high intensity in the evenings, thinking that would help with her weight, but it didn't. And when she stopped doing them, we got her on a proper eating program. She lost all the weight. So people think exercise, which of course is great. I'm not. Exercise is fabulous, but it's what you do, the type of exercise.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like at this age, I'm not doing anything I don't want to do. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
so for me, and then in another high intensity, if you have a high intensity day and then you have to go and have a high intensity, workout, listen, everyone's different. That just wouldn't be for me. I need something that's going to center me and grounds me, and that allows my mind to think clearer, and then I can be more productive.
Yeah.
So I feel like when I'm in that space, you not only eat better, you make better choices, you live better, you feel better, right?
Yeah.
And you don't eat as much, because if you're always like in that space, then you're gonna like eat mindless eating. I mean, so many other triggers happen, right? And let me just talk about healing and energetic healing for a moment. So a lot of times you can't lose weight is because you have energy centers that are blocked. Your chakras are blocked. You have a lot of attachments. There's things that are happening around us. I mean, we're all like one blob of energy. So if you don't take care of those things too, you clear those out, you're never going to lose the weight. It's not always just checks and balances. Like I have a girlfriend, like she is like, what you take in and what you put out, it's got to be in the negative, and that's how you lose weight. I'm like, not always. And so we always have a conversation about that. It's not always that way. It's really, it's what your temple is. It's what your balancing system, what it does.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally agree with you. And
Yeah.
I totally agree on, it's, calorie counting, calories, there's so much difference in calories, aren't there? Calories that you get from broccoli compared to calories you get from a
Ice cream.
processed food. Yeah, ice cream. I mean, it has a totally different effect on your body.
Yeah.
And, we're seeing that in weight loss, these drastic, very restrictive weight loss programs, they're not realistic and they don't work long term. Okay, you
Yeah.
probably will lose weight initially, but it's not sustainable.
Right. No, I agree. I want to skip over into talking about beauty and skin.
Mhm.
I mean, this is our largest organ. We need
Yes.
to take care of it, right? I mean, as I have a suntan, um, but we do, we need to take care of it. Can you elaborate about how our skin is affected during menopause?
Yeah, there's a lot that goes on with the skin, and this is really an area of my expertise. I do a lot of work with women that have skin problems, and what happens is, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone are really important, as we've already spoken about, for everything, but including the skin. They're crucial. So when we have a decline and we stop producing estrogen and progesterone, we see a reduction in collagen and elastin in the skin. So, you know, we lose that firmness on the skin. We can start to develop fine lines and wrinkles. Estrogen is also responsible for the moisture levels in the skin, the production of, there's something called hyaluronic acid, which is a wonderful thing that we need to keep moisture in the skin. So when we lose our estrogen, we don't have the same amount of moisture levels in the skin. It's also responsible for the regulation of our pigmentation in the skin. So, you know, you can see what we call hypo and hyperpigmentation appearing on the skin, you know, like the brown spots, or you get white spots where you're missing the pigmentation. Allergies. Estrogen is needed for the immune system regulation. You know, I have clients that all of a sudden react to products that they've used for years. You know, on the skin, they get itchy skin, they get allergies, the skin becomes thinner, you bruise easier. And also an area that I always like to mention is our mucous membranes become drier, like the mouth, the nose, the eyes, and the V word that no one ever says, the vagina.
Yeah, that too. That too. Yeah, no, dry eyes, definitely. I wear contacts, dry eyes, yes. Yes,
It's
that's
all
true.
yeah, it's all affected, and these things kind of creep up on you. And there's so many things, like you were saying, Dawn, that we can look after ourselves. There's fantastic products. There's an array of amazing treatments that you can use on the skin. You know, looking after your skin using moisturizers and sun protection factor, and having a daily routine and exfoliating the skin, using masks, you know, all of these things help to maintain our skin and really look after it. But you can, something that I forgot to mention, is you can actually get acne as well when we come into perimenopause. Um,
Oh, huh.
you can suddenly get breakouts and acne among, you know, as if you haven't got enough going on, all of a sudden
Right.
your skin flares up. But there's
Wow.
things you can do. Nobody should suffer. You need to go and see a professional, you know, esthetician, and ask for help, because there are so many things that you can do to improve the skin.
Yeah. And then during this time, you know, you're under a lot of stress. So your skin's going to react in certain ways. I mean, I had a client, um, and she was, yeah, I'd say, yeah, she was in her mid 40s, but she had a client and she just had this whole rash that just broke out on her face, and she had it for like a month and a half. And I just said, well, let's, you know, let me just try to do some sort of energy healing and maybe clear some things out for you. And maybe you need to, you know, just work in that space for a little bit. And it was really because she was in a very stressful job, and her role had changed. And so because what her body was going through with menopause was throwing it into another cycle of, with the stress, and making her whole face flare up. So by helping her to release that stress and to understand where it was actually coming from, you know, ultimately in a week or few weeks, it started really just kind of dissipating and going away. Where, you know, if sometimes I feel like if you end up going to a medical professional or a dermatologist, they're just going to see what it is on the top, and they're not going to take in consideration of the whole picture, you
No,
know,
no,
what the whole thing is.
they don't look. They just look at the thing, that the symptom, don't they? They don't actually think, well, why
Yeah,
it's happening. But it's
right.
actually, you made me think of one interesting thing here, Dawn, was that I see a lot, particularly with skin issues, is histamine intolerance.
Mm.
And that is something that not many people think about, and it's quite common, and it becomes more common as we come into this menopause transition. And what it's kind of like a bit like a vicious circle, because histamine we need, you know, histamine's great, but it's kind of, we don't want too much of it. We've got our histamine bucket, and when that overflows, that's when we can start seeing like rashes on the skin, like hives, irritation, itchy skin. And it can also manifest as like headaches, joint pains, fatigue, because histamine, what happens is when we have, particularly in perimenopause, when we have higher estrogen levels, high estrogen stimulates the body to produce more histamine. And if that isn't enough, when you've got high histamine levels, it stimulates the body to produce more estrogen. So you've kind of got this mad, vicious circle going on. But
Yes.
histamine intolerance is very common, and you can manage that by diet. By looking at what you're eating. Trying to avoid hit foods that are high in histamine.
Huh. How
You
to, do you know
eliminate.
what's a high histamine food, you know?
There's quite a few, but for example, aged cheeses
Oh my gosh,
is one of them.
that is like such a magnet for me. I love cheeses.
Yeah, but I mean, most people are fine, and there's nothing wrong
Yeah.
with eating them, but you
Huh.
just need to keep that bucket like
Yeah.
below the level where it'll overflow. But it's actually quite common histamine intolerance, specifically in women in perimenopause.
So the takeaway for the skin is really you want to find a good cream, a quality cream with hydrochloric acid
Yeah, I mean, you need moisture. Your skin
and
becomes
moisture.
drier, and there's so many fantastic products on the market, and you need, things that are slightly more anti-aging. Things that are going to active ingredients that are really going to help to revitalize our skin and give it moisture. I love, for example, retinol. The
Okay.
retinol, vitamin A. That is great for women as we age because it is very it renews our cells. It also exfoliates the skin. It can, just a word of warning, if you're not used to using retinol, just get advice from a professional and
Right.
don't use it maybe twice a week to start with, because it takes a while for your skin to get used to it. And absolutely do not put it on if you're going out in the sun.
Yeah. I was just gonna say, yeah, yeah, disclaimer, no sun. Yeah, that's for
I'm with
sure. So let's why should we look after our bones at this time? What is happening in our bones?
Bone health, yeah, big thing. Where estrogen and progesterone is needed for bones. So when we have a decline in these hormones, we find that we can have a weakening of bones. It can lead to osteoporosis. So what we need to think about is, eating foods that are rich in calcium, in vitamin D, in vitamin K, because all of these, amongst other things, magnesium as well, are needed for bone health. And it's very common that we have, a decline in the strength of our bones as women because of the decline in hormones, the lack of hormones. These hormones are crucial for building bone, for keeping our bones strong. Our bones become more porous.
Okay.
So and the thing about osteoporosis is it's this silent thing, because you don't really know you've got it until maybe you trip or you fall over, and you have a fracture or you break something. So eating calcium rich foods like your green leafy vegetables, dairy products, um, is really important, and getting protein sources is very important for bone health,
I think
because
that yeah, I just think that, in general, and thank goodness, I mean, I think our world is changing by leaps and bounds on what we put in our mouth. We are really, we're really getting there in the accessibility of fresh foods and wholesome foods is really very popular. I think like during COVID, when everybody was shut down, people were starting to, really cook at home and taking care of themselves at home. We had nothing else but to open up a recipe book and try something new. So I do feel that people are really have recognized the difference between processed foods and good whole foods. I mean, everyone loves a McDonald's every, once in a blue moon, but if your taste buds come alive with fresh, wholesome foods, you're never going to want that stuff. Never. You know, I really, I believe that. Um, so I would love for you to, I mean, I could go on and on. I mean, we could talk about, you know, blood sugar and heart health. I mean, the brain health in this, you know, it's just so important. Every single part of this is just so important in how it relates to menopause. So it just give us, I want to go into your program. I want to talk about that, but just give us a, you know, a quickie about blood sugar, stress levels, brain health. I know it's like short, heart health. Give us a little bit of an overview of those things.
Yeah, menopause affects every bodily system. So, you know, the ones that you've just mentioned, Dawn, it affects everything. We've got estrogen receptors and progesterone and testosterone. That's actually needed for many different functions. So when we don't have these hormones anymore, it affects everything. So, you know, what we need to do, like we've already said, is look after yourself better. You know, gain knowledge on what is happening with your body during this time, because knowledge is power. And you know, to summarize on brain and cardiovascular and, you know, all of these things, it's about eating whole foods. Just what you were saying, cooking at home, it doesn't have to be complicated. I'm like a super believer in everything should be simple, realistic. You know, all the recipes that I have are really easy. You know, you've got protein, you've got healthy fats, and you've got a carbohydrate source predominantly from vegetables. That is what you should have on your plate. Get rid of all the junk, the processed, the refined foods, the sugars, the food, you know, the stimulants like caffeine and alcohol, because you just can't tolerate it anymore when as you age, and it will make you feel terrible. So, you know, if you just do one thing for your health, it would be to start cooking from home with raw, whole ingredients, because of the, you know, blood sugar balance. Again, as we age as women, we're more vulnerable to insulin resistance, which means that our blood sugar levels can rise. And the next stage from that, if you don't look after yourself, is diabetes too.
Mm.
So our blood sugar, which blood sugar means, you know, eating in balance, eating whole foods, not refined carbohydrates. Like I always say, like the white products, you know, the white bread, the muffins, you know, biscuits, crisps, all of those things just are very easy for your body to digest, and they just shoot your blood sugar up very, very fast. And if you're constantly eating these things, you know, the insulin response, whereas insulin is the hormone that allows our body to utilize glucose, the energy, it kind of, your body's like, oh, here we go, here's insulin again. Oh, I'm not going to react to that because I see it all the time. And that's what insulin resistance is. So your blood sugar levels can become higher and higher. And this alone leads to many problems, you know, inflammation in the body, diabetes too, and everything. But it's not, what I try to say to everyone, it's not difficult. I think people just think
Yeah,
it's, oh, I'm going to have to start cooking all these fancy meals in the evening. It's not. You know,
it's
you can
not.
eat vegetables, a protein source, and healthy fats.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. And that really, for heart health as well, for brain health, you know, your omega oils, your healthy fats are crucial for our brain. Your B vitamins are needed for energy production and brain health. So if you're eating a varied diet full of color and get rid of all this toxic packaged food, then you will be doing a big, big favor for your overall health.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for that. Yes, absolutely. I would love to switch gears and talk about your program. Could you tell us more about that? I think it's really important that people know about how amazing this program is.
Yeah, I get very excited about my program because it's just amazing, the results that we've had. I just actually finished one a few weeks ago. It's called the 21-day reboot and reset for women over 40. And it's basically 21 days. We have a week where we prepare, and it's working specifically on the things that we need as women as we age. There's a meal plan that you follow, so it's very structured, and then we go through all these things like sleep, weight management, brain health, and I give you tasks to do every week. It's live sessions. We have support on WhatsApp and Facebook, and it's such a community. And the results that I have on these programs, and it just 21 days is amazing. And even the group of women that I had last time, we still meet once a month, and we have support sessions and talk to make sure everyone's staying on track. But it's really focusing on optimizing health for women that are, in that age group with hormone issues and problems. And it's fun. It's great to do. Everything's recorded. So if you can't join the sessions, that's fine. I'm hopefully, it just depends on my diary so full, it's going to be running another reboot course at the end of October, November time before Christmas.
Oh, absolutely. 21 days, it takes 21 days to change a habit. So you do really need that. And just the camaraderie of having other people and meeting new people, meeting new friends, you never know, you like meet somebody else. Even when I do groups, those people meet up, they talk, they made a friend, right? It's a win-win. You're learning and you have a community, like you said. That's incredible. Would you please, we're going to wrap this up. Would you please tell us how we can get a hold of you and give us some of that information?
Yeah, the best way really is via my website, which is alisonbladh.com. On there, you've got all my social media links. I'm virtually on all social media. If you just look for Alison Bladh, you'll find me on the majority of social media platforms. But what I wanted to offer your audience or your listeners, Dawn, is I have a wonderful free ebook, which is a 7-day reset menopause meal plan, which really just gets you going. It's the style of eating that we've been talking about. Very easy, lots of lovely recipes, meal plan, shopping lists, etc. So I could send you that link if you think your listeners would be interested in downloading that.
Absolutely. And I'll put it in the show notes. Absolutely. That sounds great. I'll take advantage of that. Alison, thank you so much for sitting with me today. It was such a pleasure to meet you, and I hope to see you again.
Oh, thank you, Dawn. It's been wonderful talking to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey there. So before we head over to the next episode, I wanted to let you know about my show named Beach Bench Medium, and it's on my YouTube channel. As I passed by beach benches that line the boardwalk, I felt the nudge from Spirit to bring family members to their bench and give them a reading. If you have a bench dedicated to someone you lost, then get in touch with me at hello@dawnricci.com. I would love for you to be on the show. Thanks for listening.